Let's get more on the impact of Trump's victory on the oil market. We are joined by Bob Yawger, energy futures strategist at Mizuho Americas. Bob, great to see you. Of course, you are a resident of New Jersey, and New Jersey went with Harris, but apparently Trump polled very strongly in the state.
Yes, he did a good job. There's plenty of my neighbors are voting for him, believe me. He pulled off a good a coup here. I shouldn't say coup because that implies something else. But he worked his plan perfectly, and he's our next president. He's my president next.
One thing we've heard, obviously, and I don't know, is it a truism, that he's likely to push for curbs on Iran to actually stem the flow of crude from that country, whereas the Biden administration arguably turned a blind eye. Do you think he will be keen to cut Iranian oil exports?
I do. He was very aggressive along those lines at the first administration, and I think he'll go back to that game plan. Biden administration didn't really want to tighten the screws because they didn't want to stymie Iranian crude oil production and raise inflation in the process. Price of Iranian barrels goes higher, inflation goes higher. They did not want to do that at all costs. Inflation was the #1 problem for the Biden administration. We semi have that under control right now, but we'll see what happens. Now, the Iranian situation is not going away. Also, during Trump's first term, he green-lighted the assassination of Soleimani, the first leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, in a drone attack at Baghdad International Airport because they were picking off American soldiers in Iraq. So he has a bad relationship. They know that he's coming in here, and he doesn't just talk to talk. He's there to participate if he has to. Now, this comes at the same time as Israel got rid of their defense minister earlier today, about the time that it started to become apparent that Trump was going to win. Is that coincidence? Is that Netanyahu jumping on the Trump bandwagon here a little bit? It's all good questions to be asked.
There's speculation that his policies will see a surge in U.S. domestic oil production, but it's already at record levels. I mean, production has climbed under President Biden.
Yes, I do expect that he'll pull back on some of the increases in land management page charges you to rent the property, to participate in the latest auctions, things along these lines. You will probably see drillers do quite well. I would not be surprised to see a lot of activity drilling holes, but you can't bring that crude oil to market right now. There's a lot of crude oil in the market. The OPEC folks are sitting on 5.8 million barrels of daily spare production. We are at an all-time record 13.5 million barrels. The United States right now is pumping out more crude oil than Saudi Arabia and Iraq, the two largest members in OPEC, combined. So, yes, we don't need more barrels, but I wouldn't be surprised to see more holes get drilled. Baker Hughes is the best performing name in the energy sector, S&P 500 energy sector today, and Schlumberger is #2. Baker Hughes is up 11% today. So that's the story right there. Drilling holes without bringing in production is probably going to be the way to go here in the future.
So Baker Hughes, they would have a big franchise in U.S. domestic production, Bob?
Not production. They drill the holes for the producer.
Yeah.
So their understanding is that Trump will get rid of so much regulation that it'll be a layup to drill the hole. Once you drill the hole, rather than bringing the production live, you cap that hole and you have that as your reserves. You count that on the books as reserves available. And every oil company, to a certain degree, chases that number.
That's interesting, and Baker Hughes would be a big winner from that. There's speculation today, and I don't know how well it's founded, that this could see the revival of Keystone XL. I mean, that could be great for our oil exporters.
It could be. He's definitely Keystone XL a fan or a friend, but we'll see what happens there. I personally think that Trans Mountain to the Pacific has kind of made that game plan a bit obsolete. Canadians are moving a lot of barrels to the Pacific coast, and it's working quite well. those barrels, some of those barrels, maybe a lot of those barrels would have made their way into the mid-continent back in the day. But with Trans Mountain, it's I don't think it's going to happen, Andrew. I think also Canadian producers, they have figured out the way to get barrels to the coast, to the Gulf Coast if they have to, or in all points in between. So I think it is I think it's a legacy thing. I don't think that it's going to come back for size.
Right. When I have time, I'll contact TC Energy, see if they have anything to say about reviving that one. Electric vehicle stocks, with the notable exception of Tesla, under pressure today. I think we can expect a Trump administration not to be keen on incentives for electric vehicles, charging, etc. No,
they're not going to be green friendly at all. There's this thing called the Eco Clean Energy Index. It's an index, so it's not tradable, but it has a pretty lot of green names in it, and it's getting hammered today. It's not too far away from the 7-year low. It was already not too far away from the 7-year low in the slowdown in green performance here in the last 6 months or so. But yeah, it's not going well there. He's definitely not going to do anything to make things better. For the green energy sector to succeed moving forward from here, at least for the next 4 years, it's going to have to be cost effective and attractive to investors.
I wonder if we'll see fewer deluxe European cars on American streets with these tariffs.
I think the rate of introduction to the United States of all EV is going to slow to a large degree. I think that solar will slow, and I think that the whole green sector is going to slow. There's going to be some names that break through. They are just cost effective. They make the customer money. If they buy into it, they will succeed, and that will be the wave of the future. We may have put the cart ahead of the horse here a little bit, in my opinion, and we have to straighten out some certain glitches and before we can successfully move forward for size.
Bob, just turning to the global oil picture, is it true to say that OECD inventories are low right now? The last time I checked, they had been rising over the past few months.
They have been. They're pretty low versus historical levels. But, Andrew, what you don't want to do is go out there and buy a lot of crude oil right now and have to put it in storage and then see the price bottom out and those barrels are $20 against you, because OPEC adds 2.2 million barrels over the next 6 months, or because Chinese demand is not good. All these are things that the producer and the storage operator have to keep in mind, and you don't want to get stuck with holding those barrels and versus the market sliding off the face of the earth. We're in a very precarious situation here. OPEC did postpone the barrels they were going to bring back, but they only postponed it to January 1st, and there's an OPEC meeting on December 1st. So you never know about these things. We've been through this situation a million times where everything seems like everybody's best friends going into an OPEC meeting. Next thing you know, they're all quarreling with each other and who's cheating, who's going to add barrels first, and who's going to get the biggest piece of the pie. They got that meeting on December 1st. It's a full ministerial meeting. It's all the ministers are going to meet in Vienna in person. It's not some kind of internet meeting. It's the real deal. And they were going to add those barrels then. If that were the case, you don't want to buy a barrel at $70 a barrel, put it in storage for $70, and 1 week later it's trading $60. You already got beat on $10.
That's interesting. So there is a risk that OPEC plus solidarity could break up?
There is. There's also an incentive. That's also an incentive not to store barrels.
Right. And just finally, I'm trying to think, this is a hard one to untangle, Trump's relationship to Putin. Would he be expected to crack down on Russia's oil exports?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, we got the Ukraine pipeline. We have the Ukraine pipeline, natural gas pipeline deal coming up here to be renewed or not at the end of the year, too. It's I get asked a lot, is it going to happen or not? I say it won't. I don't think that he's going to really try and be tough with Putin. I do think he's going to float the idea of some kind of peace agreement. I think he's going to float an idea that the Ukrainians will have to give away some territory that's dominated by Russian-speaking Ukrainians. I think it will come to that. Whether they will accept or not, I'm not really sure. It's there's been a lot of blood spilled there to walk away with only a partial peace deal.
We'll have
so, but I do think that he will try to float that deal.